So, I have a couple bigger projects in the works, and I'm starting up school again, but I wanted to get something out a little, quick and dirty, so obviously I'm returning to the well, cultivating my brand, whatever, and I'm talking more about Final Fantasy XIII, one of my favorite titles in the series. I'm probably going to write more stuff about 13 in the future, but, for now, I kind of want to talk about its first sequel, Final Fantasy XIII-2, a game that, as far as I can tell, was also largely panned when it released, and where I can and doubtlessly will give a passionate defense of FF13, I can sort of understand the animosity towards 13 too. In a lot of ways, it's kind of an underwhelming game. I know that a lot of its promotional work highlighted Lightning as returning to a main character role, only for the game to focus almost entirely on Sarah, Noel, and Mog, their goofy little Moogle sidekick. It's a game about time travel, and time travel is a loaded, weird thing to bring into a piece of art. A lot of people care about the mechanical specifics of how time travel works within a piece of art that's about, time travel, and 13-2's time travel is kind of just nonsense. It introduces a ton of weird concepts to the world, and in a lot of ways, it feels significantly easier than its predecessor, and yet, I think this is a really interesting and kind of well-made sequel. And in particular, I want to talk about what I think it genuinely excels at, or at least what about this game I find so gripping and powerful. And I'm gonna try and not start talking too much about FF7 Remake before I make my video on that one too, which I looked ahead on my script and I actually succeeded, so that's kind of anticlimactic. Share, and subscribe, and I'll make a video on FF7R soon, I guess. Boy. Okay, so I'm gonna try and meet folks halfway here. I promise, because there are some complaints on this title that I legitimately agree with, and I'm gonna start selfishly with an incredibly niche one. See, one of my favorite moments in FF13 is when you finally get to Erba, and it's just gone in a way that's so staggering and absolute. This isn't FF15's gritty, oh dear, it's been years and the place is all dark and gloomy and ruined and we had to turn the gas station into an army base nonsense. There's no real signs of hostility, no invasion that's explicitly clear. It just looks like whatever civilization that was once here has been gone for a long, long time. And there's this haunting music playing over it, over the battles you fight here with the Seath, the people who fail in their god's missions and turn into mindless monsters, and it just creates this staggering moment of devastating loss. And FF13 too thought that trick was so nice that they copied it near the end of the story when you go to Null's home. And it's in that weird realm of music, since 13-2 pays a lot of homage to 13 by borrowing from its track for certain events, areas, usually when Sarah's revisiting something Lightning and the others went through. But this just feels manipulative. They missed the point on what was so powerful about this music. And, don't get me wrong, I think Dust to Dust is achingly beautiful, but it comes at you paired with this just beautifully staggering moment, and putting it back in at a sort of similar moment in 13-2 feels overly mechanistic. And this, again, may seem like a nitpicky complaint, but this is all going to make sense when I later talk about how good this game is at evoking loneliness. Spoilers, it's extremely good at it. The other complaints are sort of fair, but often kind of live in that nebulous, subjective space. Mundane things like not liking Mog, I can take them or leave them, or being upset at there not being enough lightning. Actually kind of like Sarah Noel, and yes, I know it's because Noel is voiced by the same guy who did Haku in Spirited Away, and that movie is perfect, and it ruined me forever, but it's fine, look, this kind of stuff, I don't really care to contest. You like the combat or you don't. You find the random encounters annoying or you don't, but I'm gonna give special focus on the time travel complaint because it's kind of an interesting sticking point. Okay, so when we think about media that looks at time travel, at least from my dumb colonizer white bitch brain, I think of a lot of art that works to speculate on how time travel could work. Things like Doctor Who, or Star Trek, or Back to the Future like to put a weighty emphasis on how time travel works, what it does to the world, does it make timelines split, is everything one timeline, what about the butterfly effect or whatever. A lot of time and effort is spent working around these questions and trying to provide answers that can satisfy the audience's innate curiosity, and that's fine. But if we go into 13.2 expecting it to play the same song and dance, prepare to be disappointed. It's not that they don't explain it at all, but they explain it in a way that honestly just kind of feels like nonsense. Like, to this day, and I've played and replayed this game a lot, I honestly don't super get what they think about time travel. It's just very loose. Like, some people can pass through the Historia Crux, which serves as a gate from different places in time and space. Some can't. Changing the future changes the past, but not in ways that seem to make sense. People say a lot of weighty things about time travel and what it does to people, but do little to meaningfully connect these things in a way that feels cohesive. You're just kind of coming and going as you please through time. It just feels superficial and trivial and silly a lot of times, and I get that, and I don't even think people are wrong necessarily for not being into that, but all of this was a setup, because surprise reveal, this is all why I love this damn game, oh my god. So, okay, that isn't totally true. Like, I do think they fucked up by slapping Dust to Dust in there for cheap emotional points, but it really only stands out because 13.2 kind of slaps when you look at it from my dumb emotional baby eyes. And I'm gonna kick us off talking shit on the story just a bit. I mean, that's not to say it's a bad story, as much as it's kind of an okay one. It's fine. Like, Sarah goes on a journey through time and space with Noel, who met Lightning at the end of the world, and along the way they learn that Cocoon, which has been encased in a crystal pillar following the conclusion of the preceding title, it's gonna fall and crash into Pulse and cause a terminating apocalypse, so our heroes travel through all these different places in search of both Lightning and a way to save the world. The game is self-consciously aware that it's going to be a sequel after this, though, since it ends on a cliffhanger, with the world saved from that particular apocalypse, sure, but Sarah dies for seeing a new, dark, chaotic future. Our remaining heroes resolve to look for a way to protect the remaining people from this new threat, and Lightning sits upon a crystal throne and turns into crystal to sleep until the fated time or whatever. This is all to say that the story feels incomplete. Partially by design, but it also makes a lot of what you do feel kind of insubstantial, since you know that this isn't going to really be resolved in this game, and if you're sticking to a close look at the story, that can feel pretty frustrating, like you're just wasting time until Lightning returns. It's a pun. But what I see when I play this weird game needs a moment to take a step back and kind of appreciate what it does with time travel. Look, I know, but okay. Look, where the game kind of doesn't really clearly explain its rules and mechanics in a way that feels reasonable, it clearly cares more about changing the world from one place in time to the next. And that's actually one of the best things about this game. Let's take the first area after the tutorial, Brescia Ruins. You first visit it at 5 AF, I think. I should do research on this, but I haven't. This is so off the cuff. So 2 years later from the start of the game, and it all mostly just, seems about right. Pulses up in the sky from your perspective, making the horizon kind of bizarre to see, but, I don't know, everything else is fine. People are there, you're roped into solving some conflict with the help of Alyssa, and it all seems kind of normal, right? They haven't really taken this whole time travel thing in a wild way, and the main quest kind of follows this trajectory for a bit, moving to 10 AF where there's a strange eclipse, but otherwise nothing super alienating. You go back to the Sunlit waterscape, way into the future, but, it's the same forest you saw back in FF13. Snow's even there, up to, wacky hijinks. It all seems pretty standard, but the longer you keep going, the more cracks start to show up in your coherence of the world. You travel to Academia, this big, sweeping utopia 400 years in the future, and it's dark and gloomy and raining, and people are being turned into Seath on the spot in order to kill you because of a wild paradox you haven't triggered yet, because you're supposed to be locked in a tower several hundred years ago for all eternity. Things just keep escalating like this, and after a while, I had to stop and look around this empty tower, all of its buzzing technology, and realize that Sarah and Noel have no grounding in this world anymore. The story takes place over 700 years of time, the kind of distance that turned Erba from a vibrant living community to ruins buried in white sand. It's not like that. Like, there are people almost everywhere you go, sure, but you have no connection to them, no adherence. Let's circle back to Brescia Ruins for a second, because, like, there's a lot of side content in 13.2, and some of it brings you back to Brescia at different times. One where it's in the middle of this swirling, chaotic, nightmarish snowstorm. There's this other side area where you enter and the area is covered in massive, haunting red orbs. And then there's a follow-up where you show up 100 years later and these orbs are just a bizarre fixture of the world. They've built their own legend around them in a blink of an eye from your perspective. And it's in these little moments that the game truly shines, because you can be standing in the streets of Academia, 4XX, a utopia actually realized, full of happy people, no enemy encounters, this swirling, beautiful place, and hell, even Hope figured out a way to meet you there, but, it isn't home. At the start of the game, Sarah's hanging out in New Bodom, a small town snow-founded on Pulse after the events of the previous game. And he's run off to try to find Lightning. No one's seen him since. You spend a lot of time in this tutorial level getting to see Sarah's life here, her friends, her students. You solve little low-stakes puzzles that kind of subtly fill in what Sarah's been doing with her time. And when you get to your first gate, your friends are there to see you off, and it's this, chipper little moment. And then they are just gone from the story forever. Like, okay, not forever. If you go digging in the deep lore, you find out that they're going to be there in the New World post Lightning Returns, and that's fine, but, like, this game grounds you in this little community, and the next time the story takes you to New Bodom, it's 700 years in the future, and the place is empty, devoid of life. Your little world was completely ruined in the apocalypse. Sarah and Noel both lose their homes in this game. Sarah just loses hers slowly. Noel's situation is kind of similar too. Outside of them committing a major thought crime with Dust to Dust, but that's fine, I'm over it. Where you kind of catch a glimpse of what Noel's life was like, and it's like some of the bleakest shit on Earth. There are 3 people left alive at the end of the world. Him, Yule, and Caius. The latter of which tries to force Noel to kill him. It's just this absolute dirge of a world. Black ground, red skies, it's just hostile and hopeless and terrifying to see. And bringing Noel back in time is nice, but he doesn't really belong here either. Hell, Mog doesn't belong here. We don't really see other Moogles in this game. You're just a trio of perpetual travelers, always visiting these places, these people. You can run into Hope and Snow from time to time, sure, but that's 13.2. It's full of these vibrant little places, but there's no place to call home anymore. Sarah loses everything. She loses it slowly, bit by bit. The more she travels, the more she tries to save the world or find her sister, the more she leaves behind until there's literally nothing left. Alright, special thanks to Evan Kearns, Alistair V, D.R. Baker, Pahor, Maria Aladren, Brandon Haney, and Nurai the Redmarked. Thank you all so much.